You might have heard of wars won with the power of guns, rifles, cannons, and bombs, but battles won by bayonets are unusual. Let's dig through the pages of history to know the 6 craziest bayonet charges in military history. Yes, bayonets, the knives attached to rifles. Here are 6 instances in which America and its allies chose to strike their enemies with cold steel, including 2 from the global war on terror. Since the first riflemen discovered they could use a blade to kill their opponents when they ran out of ammunition, bayonet combat has functioned as a tried and tested method to win the already lost wars. Number 6. Bayonet charges in the Battle of Stony Point. Anthony Wayne, a 34-year-old man with prominent features, a strong drinker, and a volatile personality, exuded energy and a thirst for fame that easily permeated his guise. He was a bayonet believer. In addition, Wayne was incredibly fearless and frequently plunged into battle with little regard for his own life, earning him the nickname Mad Anthony from his soldiers. On July 15, 1779, Wayne woke up his troops early and told them to shave and powder themselves. They were then instructed to assume war gear and sharpen their bayonets. The Americans marked their headgear with pieces of paper around 11:30 p.m. that night, 30 minutes before the planned attack, to distinguish between friends and enemies during the assault. Anthony Wayne issued a death threat if his outnumbered and outgunned soldiers continued to refuse to fire. With fixed bayonets and sabers, the Americans surged through the lines of the British defenders as they sneaked up on them at night. When all was said and done, the British had suffered 63 dead, 70 wounded, and 442 prisoners, while the Americans had retaken Stony Point with 15 soldiers killed and 85 wounded. This win in the war justified the title Mad Anthony given to Anthony Wayne by his soldiers' crew. His madness gave them this victory with the least losses. Number 5. Gettysburg, the bayonet charge at the Little Round Top. The most infamous counterattack of the Civil War may have been led by the Union Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain's 20th Maine Regiment in the late afternoon of July 2, 1863, on a boulder-strewn slope in southern Pennsylvania. The regiment's quick, desperate bayonet charge on Little Round Top was credited with rescuing Major General George Gordon Meade's Army of the Potomac, taking the Battle of Gettysburg, and putting the South on a long, unstoppable path to defeat. On July 2, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln issued his second call for troops, which led to the formation of the 20th Maine. By the time of the Battle of Gettysburg, the regiment's ranks had been reduced to about 266 troops due to the strain of the war, and the 20th was seen as a weak link in Vincent's brigade. The regiment had initially fielded a total complement of 1,621 soldiers. Colonel Vincent picked a line of defense that began on the west slope of the hill as soon as he arrived at Little Round Top. Chamberlain gathered his company commanders and briefed them on his strategy. When their supply of ammunition was practically exhausted, Chamberlain decided to fix his bayonet and charge the 2 Alabama battalions from below. Chamberlain seemed to have been fortunate in both time and fortune. He had not only used prudence in his leadership decisions, but he also outlived his anticipated time of death. Number 4. PELELIU Airfield Bayonet Charge. During World War II, the Japanese Army used its version of bayonet tactics from World War I up until this point, but later changed their military plans and set up extensive fortifications. The island commander forbade the use of last-ditch banzai attacks motivated by anger. Instead, he employed a stringent fire control regime that made the greatest use of their ample ammunition supplies to conduct a last-man defense. The defense of PELELIU presented a very difficult tactical challenge for the 1st U.S. Marine Division. The extensive preparation of the island and the garrison of veterans from China was a matter of concern. On September 16, 1944, the 1st Marine Division tried to seize the PELELIU airfield from Japanese control. After realizing they would be out of ammunition and unable to proceed forward through rifle fire, they lined up 4 battalions and stormed the open land with fixed bayonets. They approached the Japanese forces and battled at a close range. At last, they captured the PELELIU airfield, sacrificing many soldiers. Number 3. Bayonet charge by the Puerto Rican 65th Infantry Regiment, Korean War, 1951. During World War II, the 65th Infantry Regiment patrolled Puerto Rico's strategic locations and carried out security operations along the island's coastline. By December 1941, almost 58,000 Puerto Rican soldiers were serving in Panama, Puerto Rico, and the rest of the lengthy arc. The 65th Infantry Regiment has shown its mettle in several battles during the North Korean People's Army invasion of South Korea. The regiment was given the command to take control of 3 Chinese-held hills by the company by the end of January 1951, after it had moved into a territory south of Seoul. The attack lasted 3 days and started on January 31st. When the goal was within reach on February 2, 1951, 2 regiment battalions fixed their bayonets and rushed the enemy position, driving the communist soldiers from their positions. It was the final battalion-scale bayonet assault made by the American Army. The battalion was credited with killing 5,905 enemy soldiers and seizing 2,086 during the ensuing battle. Number 2. Bayonet charge by Captain Louis Millet during the Korean War, 1951. In combat, Captain Millet of Company E of the U.S. Army stood out for his outstanding bravery and tenacity above the call of duty. When his first platoon force was pinned down by small arms, automatic, and anti-tank fire, he led his company in an attack against a heavily defended position. With a fixed bayonet, Captain Millet led the attack up the slope that had been scorched by fire after ordering the 3rd Platoon to advance. Captain Millet bravely maintained the ferocious attack by clubbing, bayoneting, and grenading the opposition after bayoneting 2 hostile men. With a fierce hand-to-hand attack, they made it to the top of the hill despite intense enemy fire. His comrades were so inspired by his fearless leadership and personal bravery that they attacked the enemy's position and used their bayonets to such devastating effect that the enemy fled in a hysterical state. Even though grenade pieces injured Captain Millet during this ferocious assault, he refused to be evacuated until the enemy had been routed and the position was secured. Captain Millet's outstanding leadership, eminent bravery, and unwavering commitment to duty were directly responsible for fulfilling a dangerous mission. They bring the greatest honor to him and the brave traditions of the armed service. The last bayonet charge by UK combat forces during Iraq War, May 2004. UK combat forces in Iraqi war was forced to mount bayonets to engage in close-quarter battles with rebels. It was the first time since the Falklands War that British forces had fixed their bayonets before engaging in combat. It was named the Battle of Danny Boy, which was dubbed after the local vehicle checkpoint that took place some 15 miles south in the city of Al Amara. On May 14, 2004, Iraqi Muqtada al-Troops Sadir fighters ambushed a party of British soldiers from the Prince of Wales Royal Regiment. Sergeant Major David Falconer gave the order for his soldiers to prepare bayonets and move into the trenches because the enemy was firing from a real trench. The British launched a charge over open terrain before diving into the trenches. The men engaged the enemy with bayonets and rifles for the next 4 hours. They managed to kill roughly 30 soldiers while suffering no significant injuries. Then a British tank came to their rescue and ended the war. The Falconer and the soldiers were awarded the British Military Cross for their bravery. This was the history of the 6 craziest bayonet charges in military history. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked the video, check out other historical videos on our channel. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you don't miss out on such interesting topics.